Welcome to the Prevention Leaders Podcast, the place where passion meets purpose. I'm your host, Dave Clausen, here with another episode that promises to not only enlighten, but to also inspire every one of our listeners. Now, I'm curious, are you ready to explore how to create a more inclusive and welcoming campus community? Because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. We're diving back into a conversation about the Innovative Shift Initiative at UT Austin. You see, you've been a longtime listener, you'll remember that back in 2023, we introduced the program, but this time, we're going deeper. We're going to see where are they at now. We'll be joined by Kate and Catherine to discuss how Shift is challenging traditional campus norms around substance use. We'll also share the program's mission, its impact, and how students like Catherine are getting involved as shift makers. We'll also explore the ever-evolving and growing world of zero-proof mixology and how it's fostering a sense of community and belonging for all students, regardless of their drinking preferences. This episode is all about creating a more inclusive and vibrant campus environment. So before we jump in, and if you're interested in learning more about fostering a welcoming and inclusive community, be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your shows. Now, a quick pause to hear about an upcoming program that I am excited to launch this year.
Are you ready to transform your leadership approach? Do you want to move from just managing tasks to inspiring and connecting with your team on a deeper level? Then the Prevention Leaders Masterclass is for you. Join Angie and Dave, experienced coaches and facilitators, in a transformative journey of personal growth and authentic leadership. Their masterclass is designed specifically for prevention professionals who are eager to unlock their potential and lead with innovation and empathy. In this masterclass, you will discover your personality and how it influences your interactions as a leader and unleash your potential to become the best version of yourself. You will also deepen your understanding of others by learning the art of facilitative and coaching leadership to inspire your team to work more effectively and efficiently. You'll get practical tools and processes to engage your community as a facilitative leader. Don't miss out on this opportunity to foster connections, ignite self-understanding, and shape the change you want to see in yourself and the world. Limited cohort sizes ensure full engagement and a personalized learning experience. Our next cohort begins in August. Sign up today and embark on a journey that will transform your leadership and make a meaningful impact in your community. Visit the link in the show notes to register today.
Okay, podcast listeners and watchers, welcome back for another episode. And this is kind of part two of a prior episode. So I'm pumped to see kind of where are they now? How far have they come? Conversation. And I'm joined here today with Kate and Catherine. Welcome.
Thanks, Dave. Super happy to be here.
All right. Well, before we get into it, so first we'll see if any of the longtime listeners say, Kate, hey, I know Kate. I remember when Kate was on talking about this whole like shift maker thing. What is shift? And me back then unknowingly asking, what does shift stand for? Ooh, did I get educated there? But the podcast has grown quite a bit since then. So let's just jump right into it. Will you give us sort of an overview? What is shift?
Absolutely. It is not an acronym, as many are led to believe. We like to say we are a bold call to action. So really that call to action of challenging campus norms, changing campus culture, really looking at the intersection of substance use and the role it played in holistic well-being. So how do we really do some environmental strategies, shift our culture to welcome our students into an environment that supports their thriving, whatever their choice might be around, I don't know, alcohol and other drugs. So we're not abstinence-based. We really promote mindful decision-making, positive social connection, And we do that in a lot of different ways. We are uniquely situated in both the Division of Student Affairs, where a lot of prevention work historically is housed, and UT Austin is really, you know, we have such amazing resources that exist and amazing prevention work that has existed long before SHIP came along. And so we make sense kind of situated and amplifying the work of our partners there. But then we also report to the undergraduate college at UT Austin. So we are intentionally put in academic spaces so that we're really looking at the holistic student experience in and out of the classroom. And I think last time we spoke, Dave, we really left folks on what you were saying.
Oh, totally.
Because we were just talking, in SHIFT in general, we started, we're a grant-funded initiative. We started with 6 pilots back in 2019, right before the pandemic really changed our culture in so many ways, right? But really also put the work of well-being right at the forefront. And so we were really trying to, how do we meet the demands? How do we think creatively and innovatively? How do we leverage what exists and amplify, but then find those moments or find those areas of innovation? And so I think one of the things, first, just for folks who are new to SHIFT, right, we work really intentionally with faculty to train faculty or do workshops with faculty on how to embed protective factors kind of into the classroom experience. So anything from empowerment to creativity to kind of cultural exploration, those sorts of things are all considered protective factors that mitigate for risk related to substance misuse, but also for, promote other healthy behaviors. So we do a training with faculty there. We also work with peer academic mentors in a similar way. We oversee now, this is new, I think, since we talked, but we directly oversee Operational Law Center, which is access, distribution, workshops, training, messaging related to opioid overdose prevention. And that's been a really great partnership with the College of Pharm at UT Austin as well. And then our shift makers kind of got started. And so that really came from, looking at so much of what we hear from students is that they seek or they are in the environments that promote high-risk drinking or drug behavior or use behavior, because that's where the socialization is. That's where the parties are. That's where they meet people. And so we've always kind of been curious about, okay, what do safer events look like? How do we increase harm reduction resources? How do we get students to buy into harm reduction and start to kind of value that and really invest in harm reduction resources at their parties? But also, how do we create spaces that aren't so focused around substance use as the main driver, as the main connector? And I think at the time we talked, one of our community partners was Sans Bar, which is an alcohol-free bar in Austin. Chris Marshall is the founder and owner of Sans Bar. And he and I think, connected quickly. We have similar missions of creating places and spaces of community that didn't necessarily revolve around substance use, but really more revolved around that connection and sense of belonging. And so we worked together in various ways. And I think it was just kind of hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had students kind of playing that role of mixologist? And what would that look like? And, it's so funny when I look back now, because it was such a wing and a prayer type thing. It was cool, we'll create a job description, and then we posted the job description. And I had the thought of is anybody going to even apply for are any students going to apply for this? This is such a weird, sounding job. And then they did. We had an amazing, I think our first round was with 6 amazing students who were totally game and excited by it. And then it was kind of well, is anyone going to actually fire this survey? And they did. And so to tell you quickly what shift makers are, they are student employees of our office. And we're not a programming office. That's not our kind of front and center. That's not, we're more kind of in the partnership community coalition building. But this emerged as a program because it just suited our culture change mission so tightly. But these students are trained with SHIFT and in partnership with Chris Marshall from Sans Bar in mixology, zero-proof mixology, which that market has exploded in the last 5 years that SHIFT has existed. It's been a really fun trajectory to kind of be a part of. So they're trained in kind of that entrepreneurial kind of that market and zero proof. And what does that mean? What is zero proof versus non-alcoholic? And we get them to learn about flavor profiles, and we have them play with mixing drinks and flavors and things. And so there's a fun part of that mixology that is part of the training. But in equal parts is community building, connection, sense of belonging, and we really talk about the culture of substance use or the culture of health and well-being on campus and try to help our students understand their role and their influence in shaping that culture. And so it's been a really fun project on so many levels because our students have been amazing, learning from their experiences, challenging those norms. And ultimately, what our mission is to create inclusive and equitable social experiences, regardless of one's choice to drink alcohol or not. So it's not necessarily advertising a replacement. It's not saying we are better than alcohol. It's really giving folks options so that when we talk about mindful decision making, they have a lot of decisions to make, right? They have a lot of options to choose from. And so the response has been just really fun and really incredible. We have students who are very interested and very invested. We have campus partners and student organizations who are super excited to hire us and pay for our services. And we have a lot of folks who have just wanted to learn more. And so I think I'm really grateful to be on this podcast today and to hopefully highlight Catherine's experience as a shift maker. Because our students, I mean, they're the ones making it happen. They're making shift happen, as we say.
And I would reflect back to my time as a student, but that's been way too long now to be relevant. So, but I do think that it's pretty clear y'all were preparing for the pandemic before the pandemic even started. In the conversations you were having, the thinking differently, where can we be innovative? Where can we still build community and connection and belonging? That whole mantra, those principles, I believe, are what helps set you up for success and be able to navigate and pivot through the pandemic. Just how y'all roll. I dig it.
Totally. And I feel like last time we talked, I might have even said this, of like, we are in the business of culture change, right? Yep. And so when the pandemic happened, it surely threw everything in gear, brand new initiatives. So things like community engagement and coalition building, especially our work with hospitality partners and things like that, instantly changed. So, but the call to be innovative and creative and think about the environment that we are in right now, not the one that we were in yesterday or 5 years ago, right? Like, I think that's always the challenge, I think, for preventionists everywhere, is that we're trying to have to be nimble and agile as the world changes around us.
Okay, so the shift makers are mixologists, and folks can hire y'all to mix up drinks. Like, what kind of events? Like, where do y'all work? Where do you go? When do they hire you? How's that work? What's that look like?
Yeah, so we have done like so many different type of events. We do like alumni events, we do student events, we've done like staff retirement parties before, and we've even done some like off-campus events. I know some of my coworkers have participated in like a West Campus event. That's just kind of where a lot of students live by the university. And so it's been a lot of fun, and like through this job, you get to meet a lot of different people that you normally wouldn't have come in contact with and kind of get to know about them, because part of our job is like, you know, Chris and Kate have just taught us, like, don't just look down and make your drink, like actually talk to them, because that's part of the experience that we're serving. And so getting to actually engage with these people and not just serve them an awesome drink, which it is, has been really fun too.
Okay, you just said something very profound there. And I just you just rolled right through it, like, not just looking down at the drink you're mixing and, you know, engaging with the individuals, because that's part of what you're there to serve, the experience. Like, I forget what I was going to ask. Like, I just want to know more about that just single thought right there. Tell me more. Like, I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have, well, I don't want to speak for shift makers, but personally, like, it's helped me grow my conversation skills and just how to be more personable with everybody, because sometimes we have our weekly supervisions, which is like our weekly team meetings, and we'll work on like different skills, and sometimes we'll do just kind of like a role play. And so our supervisor will tell us, okay, like you're like a parent event, or you're at like a tailgate event, and we'll just try, and one person will be the shift maker and then one person will be the customer. And so we'll kind of role play this out and learn, like, what are some topics of conversation that I can start with this person that I don't even know, or how can I explain zero proof in a way that's digestible for them? And so we do practice these things. And I think that's awesome because not all of us come in with like super uber confidence that we can just speak to random people. And it just really kind of forced me to build that skill. And I think that's been really nice because it's helped me just in my other aspects of college, just like how to make friends, how to start up a conversation. And so it's a really useful skill that I am really grateful to have gotten from this job.
Just a chance to get some reps in. And you're a great conversationalist, and pretty sure you asked more questions before we hit recording than I did. And I'm a question asker. But could you tell me a little bit more about like how you said that like you're serving up more than just drinks?
I think that's kind of the connection part because like when students are on campus, like one of our events that we do is midterm mocktails. And so most of them are pretty stressed. They're like in between like going to the library and studying, or like we've had people who are like, oh yeah, I just pulled an all-nighter or something. And you just like kind of ask them like, oh, like how's it going? Or like, what do you plan to do after your finals are done? And then like just it's kind of like when you actually decide to strike up a conversation with someone on the bus or whatever, and you just feel like a little bit better, like a little happier afterwards. And I feel like it's a really like reciprocal feeling because you feel like them, smile a little bit and just get to release some energy. And then also like as the shift maker, like I get pretty excited for my shifts because even if I am maybe like just a little stressed that day or just kind of moody, however I'm coming into that space, I'm pretty excited to like get to talk to people and get to know that my mood is going to also shift because of these conversations. But yeah, I think like to your point of like serving the experience, it's just like we want to serve maybe the connection that people thought like I can only get through alcohol. Like you can also get that without having to have alcohol at all.
Oh, that is just so profound. Yes, I wanna come to one of y'all's events now as well. I want that kind of connection and conversation.
You are always welcome, Dave. And I will say from my view and speaking for, Chris, Marshall, and I, who kind of have worked together to train, and it's been about 2 years now that since we launched Shift Makers. And I think I just want to speak to that social connection piece because I think it's so core to what we do in theory and philosophy, right? That how the intention is really in that connection and recognizing that it culturally, not even on campus, but in kind of broader culture, right? Like so much of our social interaction is centered around alcohol, even if that's not, everybody's drinking or something like that. It tends to be, right, that kind of experience. And so it felt really important that I guess the one of the strengths of having a community partnership with someone outside of campus, right? It's the community engagement and this kind of like, I think, customer service piece. And Chris is an entrepreneur. He is a business person. He is not coming at it from a prevention standpoint, right? Like he's not necessarily approaching this from a public health thing, but it's a really beautiful integration, I think, of like when we go out and socialize in the world, and then also kind of in our public health best practices, substance misuse prevention. There's a really beautiful Venn diagram there that Shift Maker kind of, threads that middle beautifully. I'll also add that that what Catherine was saying about like, oh yeah, we're always telling them like, don't focus on the drink, focus on like make eye contact or talk with that person. And I think that's important for two things. One, I noticed that really that was a skill we really had to offer students since the pandemic. And we didn't start this before the pandemic, so I have nothing to compare it to. But in my experience of working with students, that was a little bit of a deficit. There was like, how do I socialize? How do I engage? Can I just say hello to someone? Like it's new because I think we were in this world that was so disconnected. And so I think it was very intentional. We had to spend and dedicate a lot of time to like those role plays or those chances to be like, just kind of feeling loose and enjoying yourself. And I think giving Shift Makers permission to have fun, I think is also a big part of that training. That the drink is almost secondary, right? It needs to be delicious and well-crafted and well thought of because it symbolizes, right, the care that goes into it. And you want people to want it, right? You want them to have a good experience. But what they really remember is, the interaction that they had. And I think a lot of things, what we kind of have to experientially kind of learn or teach our shift maker, the reason why we do all those role plays and practices and trainings and things is because, when you have a huge group of people that are like all waiting for drinks and they're like, oh my gosh, I got to get the drinks. And we have such smart, capable students that they're like, I need to get it out fast, and it's kind of, again, okay, well, what are folks going to remember? Are they going to remember how quickly they receive their drink, or that like conversation, or that like check-in, or that? And it doesn't necessarily have to be about substance misuse prevention. And, I think that's kind of a different approach in our work too, where so much of what we do is, let me tell you about harm reduction strategy. Let me tell you about, safer, ways to use, or BAC, or whatever this is. And I think shift makers get to really embody that kind of culture that they want to be a part of. And so, not that there isn't a space or place for that, but I think this is a great experiential way for folks to engage, to have a drink that's not necessarily promoting alcohol. Rather, it's really, the emphasis, I think, is felt on both sides, that it's really about connection.
I'm going to tell two stories here, just, because I want to. No. With the having conversations, that is something that I saw when I was a field training officer. Some of the new police officers, when I was training them, I would say, hey, we're going to do foot patrol this evening, and we're just going to walk around campus and just see how many conversations we can start with students. Just casual, positive conversations, just chatting. How's your day going? How's your semester going? What's good? And it was very interesting to watch the younger officers struggle with that. They didn't feel like they were allowed to, or they weren't sure how to go about striking up a conversation with a total stranger on the sidewalk.
I think we underestimate that that's a skill, right? I think sometimes we take it for granted that it's really a skill you need practice at. And I think especially for the past few years, as students are coming out of a very unique time with the pandemic and kind of being withdrawn and having online classes and things like that, it definitely felt like a skill that we had to really create space for. And I think it's easy to dismiss it or say like, oh, everybody knows how to have a conversation, but it's really a skill, that you need to practice.
I mean, so before I was a police officer, I was a corrections officer working at a local county jail, and I was on the midnight shift by myself. I would be the only corrections officer on duty, and that was when I was really starting to really get my act together and start to work towards my recovery. But I read like crazy, and I ended up reading communication books to learn more about communication. And then, of course, got my reps in having conversations. Because, yeah, absolutely agree with you. Got to learn, got to practice. The other story real quick, too, that I wanted to share, because y'all just kind of like, one of the reasons, like, yes, I want to be at one of your events. Like, I'm not just saying that, but reflecting back on my time in grad school, that was one of my darkest periods, struggling with my PTSD, my anxiety, my depression, and my addiction. And a lot of it stemmed from the fact that I didn't feel like I belonged. I was older than all the other students because I'd been deployed for a year. All my friends had graduated. I had different life experiences and no other. I just didn't feel like I belonged. I didn't feel like I could connect with other students either. And that just furthered my isolation and loneliness. And so, like, that's when, like, y'all, like, focus so much on that experience and that connection and that, like, that's why it just takes my mind somewhere else right now, because it's actually speaking to my heart.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I feel like that's such a valuable story. And I think it's such a story we hear a lot. And I think that's a lot of people experience, especially, at UC Austin, that is just really, the typical student there is very smart, very dedicated, very hardworking, and then, often kind of struggles for that sense of belonging. And what does that mean? And how do we kind of find places? And I think grad school is a really great example. And I think those have been, I think, some exciting partnerships that we've had. For example, we have, a law school here where they do weekly bar review, and I'm putting bar in quotations because it's a play on, obviously, words there. And that bar review is typically at a bar surrounded by alcohol. Everyone typically in law school is, over 21. But they've invited us for one of their bar, kind of instead of alcohol. And it was really well received. I think similarly, we have an amazing business school, MBA program. And they have, kind of these weekly study sessions that are at bars and Thirsty Thursdays, or, I think we're not unique in that, right? I think that is often a grad school. This is how we build community. And so I think even just challenging, even if it's in addition to, normalizing that there's options around that don't focus on that. But for grad students, which is typically if you're a grad student, you're working pretty hard anyway, right? Oftentimes you also have a job. Also, you might have a family, or you might be searching. It's just such a complex thing. And I think we're not alone either in how we better serve grad students. But I do think thinking about the environments that students adopt for themselves and who they include and who they might not include is really important, or what message they're sending. Because it can be really challenging to find that place where you feel like you belong, or where you fit in.
Challenging, but when you do, oh, so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I've been doing a lot of work with Joan Masters and Missouri Partners in Prevention, and they're really doing a bunch of work as far as building a sense of connectedness and belonging and caring in their campuses as well. Cool stuff, but I'll bring them on for another episode too. And I think that'll be a good part too. But Catherine, I want to go back to your shift maker beginning. So I'm curious, what kind of drew you to say, hey, I want to be a shift maker? Well, yeah. What got your attention? What made you want to do it?
Yeah. So my first interaction with shift makers was actually at one of their events. So I didn't really know about shift makers before this at all. And I was just going to do a study session with this group that I had. And in this courtyard of one of the buildings that we have called Welch, they were having this kind of I'm not even really sure what the event was for. But I just saw free drinks and free pizza, and I was like I scored today. And so I went over, and then as I was getting my drink, they were making conversation with me, which was really nice, because usually at free food events, you kind of just grab and go, or you're okay, what QR code do I scan? What do I need to do to get my free food? And then you blast. But no, it was really nice, because they were just chatting with me, and then I was kind of asking them this is really cool. Is this y'all's job? And they're yeah, we get paid for this. And then I was oh, cool. This is a really awesome job. It sounds really fun that y'all just get to make drinks and then, get paid for it. And then, I was well, how could I be a shift maker? How could I apply? And they're oh, perfect timing. We have applications open. And so that's how I heard about Shift and just got involved with it. And originally I think I was just kind of coming at it from a job perspective. I was applying to a lot of stuff on campus at that time. But I think that Shift has also pleasantly surprised me in that it's given me so much more than I thought it would. For example, at some of our weekly supervisions, we do what is called a share circle once a semester. And this is just another organization on campus. And there's 2 facilitators, and they will just, open up discussion, have a few topics of conversation. And something that's been really cool about Shift is that you really do get to form a connection with your coworkers as well. And it's that sense of community that Kate was talking about. And for me in my freshman year, I think I can relate to you a lot, Dave, because I didn't really feel like I belonged at my school. I went to another school before Texas. And this was a really big change in that I had people to go to every single week that knew my name and knew a little bit about me, and we could have vulnerable conversations that I wasn't having in my job at Rudy's or my jobs elsewhere. So it's been really cool in that aspect, and kind of veered from your question, but yeah.
A lot of it was about the experience of being a shift maker, not just the what I call JOB aspect, not just the straight up making drinks.
Yeah.
Okay, well, after that first event where you learned about shift makers, and you're I think I'm going to apply for that job, what if any kind of hesitations did you have about stamping the title, I am a shift maker, this is what I do? What kind of hesitations or sort of uncertainties did you have?
don't think like at that time, I think I just kind of like set it and forget it because I was applying to so many things. But like after my interview, I think is when I kind of thought more about like, okay, like I actually just like applied for that. And I think maybe a fear, like a hesitation that I had was just that I didn't know everything and I didn't want to say something wrong. It felt kind of like a little bit of a minefield in a way, because I feel like these topics can be really sensitive and I never knew anyone who went through something like this or just really anything about the topic. So it just felt daunting and like I didn't want to get it wrong. But our training just like it just covered all of that, and there's been a lot of space between like our shift supervisors and just the whole team to like just ask questions, or like if a student asks you a question, you can just say like, I don't know, like I'm not really sure yet, but I can find out for you. So that's been really comforting as well.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. What are some fun? So, audience, if you didn't realize, I'm really wanting to dig in and just learn about what is it like to be a shift maker. Like, what is that life like? And so I'm curious, Catherine, what are some like high points? Like as you reflect back on your time as a shift maker, what are some just cool experiences that come to mind right away?
Yeah, I think like one of the coolest parts was when we got to do our training at Sam's Bar, the one that Kate was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was such a like a cool thing because I was like, wow, I'm like going to a bar in downtown Austin today, and I'm just training for my job. Like that's such a cool thing to be able to say, and I was so excited for it. And like when we got there, like Chris was there, he was teaching us like, and we had like a bar kit which like was so beautiful and pretty, and it feels so professional. And like a lot of people will ask us like, oh, are you guys professionally trained or are you guys bartenders like outside of this? And like having that experience of just getting to learn in that space was really cool. And we like that was the first time we got to experiment with drink making. And I think there's been like other supervisions as well where Jude, our supervisor, like she's been like, we're just gonna make drinks today. And like that's such a fun thing. And I think to have a job where they ask for student input, like what drinks are we going to have on our menu next year? Like, I don't think that's very common. Like a lot of times it's just like, okay, here's how our program works, like fall in line. But for shift, you really get to be a part of the process. And like, we have these feedback surveys for every shift that we do. So if you're like, oh, I have this great idea, or we could use this tool that would make our job easier. Like we've gotten so many cool, like little new gadgets, like even funnels for our cups and like, I don't know what they're called, but those little pour things. So that's been really fun. And so I really appreciated like the support that we've also gotten from our shift staff and the shift team.
Hey folks, just a quick break to tell you about an exciting collaboration between the Prevention Leaders podcast and Wired Biohealth. Wired Biohealth has crafted a special package just for our listeners interested in exploring the genetic basis behind their behavioral health. This offer includes 50% off of their epigenetic kit, free shipping in the US, a complimentary virtual review of your biomarker evaluation report with a Wired Biohealth consultant, and a free 60-minute follow-up session. Now imagine gaining personalized insights from a simple cheek swab that empowers you to make informed decisions about your wellness. Now, I know I've mentioned on past episodes about my journey with them over the last year, and y'all, it has been a game changer in all aspects of my life. So I invite you to check out wiredbiohealth.com and mention my name, Dave Clausen, to grab this exclusive deal for you all, the listeners of the Prevention Leaders podcast. Now, let's get back to our episode. You've been talking about stuff that I don't even know what it is. Bar kits, flavor. Okay, you had something about flavor packets or lists. I'm intrigued. Like, okay, I have no idea. But what I do hear though is, in addition to shifting the conversation, the culture on campus, shift and the shift makers are shifting what it means to be a student employee, shifting the norm there too. Like that experience, all that goes into it.
Yeah, definitely.
I think everything that shift does, right, like needs to be driven by students. I think it's their culture to change and we need them and want them to own it. That being said, right, like it's a student culture, but we have to look at other folks who are reinforcing it, like alumni and faculty and staff and parents, and that's so much for our community engagement work. But certainly, I think we're really, invested in students and student voice, and our shift makers have been really amazing students and insights into what resonates and what works. And I think it's been so fun for us to learn from them and just see them grow and see how, being part of the work and giving their input and helping to shape the work that they do. Obviously makes it better and more resonant, but it also just, I think, empowers all of us and kind of you feel that kind of go out into the community and just really, you're watching culture change happen and you're seeing them reflect differently on their own connections to maybe substance use or social connection or whatever it might be. And then you see that kind of go into those interactions and you see people walk away from those tables talking and thinking about it a little bit different. So it's a really beautiful ricochet that happens that is 100% student driven. And it's really an awesome thing to be.
Absolutely. Like I'm starting to rack my brain on, okay, when can I get down there and come to an event this next fall? And also too, another thing that I'm kind of hearing there brings me back to a quote that my dad shared. And it's that, you hear a lot of people say you need to lead by example. You want to be a good leader, but he says, in all reality, you need to live by example if you want to lead by example. Oftentimes, I'm a leader and, follow the box, check the boxes, do X, Y, and Z. I'm a leader. But if you're really not genuine, authentic, people see right through that. And Kate, you and your team, the shift leaders, the shift staff, the shift team, you are living by example. You want the shift makers, you want to shift the conversation to be one that is more caring and connected and creating that sense of belonging. That's what y'all are doing with your shift makers and your team also.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. That's the most meaningful compliment we could ever ask for.
Yeah, you're not just talking the talk. Y'all are walking the walk too. Yeah, practicing what you preach. All those cheeky sayings. Yes. All right, Catherine, you ready for another question?
Yeah.
All right. So I was asked about sort of like high points or a cool, fun experience you had. I'm curious, what might be some impacts or some outcomes or some of those ripple effects, those things that you've seen with the students while you've been a shift maker?
Yeah, great question. I think like some of the like I guess ripple effects is just like people becoming more aware. Like something that's really cool is people will come up and they'll be kind of skeptical. Like you can just see it in their eyes, like they're like standing away a little bit. And then they just like get a little closer. We welcome them in, and then sometimes they'll ask like, "Oh, hey, like what's that bottle that you're using?" And then we'll show them like, "Oh, it's like here's our syrups, here's our like alternatives that we're using," and they'll ask really good questions. So like they clearly want to learn, and I think it's really optimistic to see that because it just kind of reinforces and validates that the work we're doing is important and is needed and is wanted on our campus. And I think it's cool when people are like, "Oh, like, can I smell that?" And then we just like give them the ball and they're like, "Oh yeah, like that kind of does smell like tequila. Like that's really cool. Like I can't believe they do that with botanicals or something like that." So I think the spreading awareness aspect has really been where I've seen like the kind of shift. And then also like when we'll do like events with people that we've partnered with before, they recognize us and they're like, "Oh my God, we love Shift." And some of the people that come are like, "Oh yeah, like I tried that drink last time. I'm going to try another one this time," or, they switch around. So Shift is now, I think, becoming more well known on campus as well. And I think that just is a testament to like what Kate has done with this program and how powerful it's been.
I will say one of my favorite anecdotes from a former shift maker was the shift maker was in Greek life. And so they were at some event that was kind of, campus facing, and some of their, peers came up from a fraternity and were like, "What is this? What are you doing?" And kind of got introduced to our shift makers through that. And then she reported back like a few weeks later at a party in their fraternity house, they had actually gone out and bought our zero proof liquors to have kind of stocked in their bar. And to me, that is like the ultimate goal of shift makers, that you're starting to see students invest in having more options and not kind of, falling at it or whatever. But those are the fun insights, right, that we wouldn't have otherwise if it wasn't that student to student, peer to peer, seeing an experience, having a different experience. There was another Greek event we were at where we offered, I think, hot water as kind of an option. And they were so funny because they kept being like, now, how much is this? Like, is it the same, price as a 6-pack, or is it different? And like, this is really good. Like, I would drink this again. Like they're surprised. And I think those are the stories that we love to collect from our students who are just, on the front lines and kind of like having these conversations that can be huge surprises to those that come up and actually and can put them in a really fun and good way, I think.
Heck yeah. I just want to like go out and interview folks and let's get all those fun little stories. Let's just compile all of them and lift them up, share those stories and make that conversation even louder and louder. And yeah. I want to throw that question directly to you, Catherine. So you talked about the impacts that you've seen like with students. What about yourself? What might be some changes that you've started to notice as an individual?
Yeah, great question. I guess I have kind of two things for this. Like, I was just remembering this while we've been talking, but a few weeks ago, I was doing an event. This is kind of like towards the end of the school year, and someone came up to me and they're like, "Oh, hey, are you in this one class with this one professor?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And she's like, "I think I've seen you in class." And I was like, "Oh, cool, cool. What's your name?" And like we just kind of started up a conversation, and like the whole semester passed by, and like we hadn't really like spoken to each other until then. And then we just figured out like, oh, we're the same major. We have a lot of similar interests. We have, some things that in our background that are kind of like aligning. And so we ended up getting coffee after that. And I just couldn't believe that like someone who literally sits in class with me every Monday and Wednesday, like I had never talked to them until I had this experience with them just at a random shift event. And that piece of connection, like we've talked a lot about that, I think, in this podcast. And like that was just so cool to see it like happen to me, and like I've seen it happen to others as well. And that was such a cool moment. But will you repeat your question again? Because I remember I had one more thing.
So just curious, like what changes, impacts have you noticed for yourself as an individual?
Yeah, I think I've like started to kind of like, as I go to restaurants, and now I'm 21, but like before that, like I would see like your mocktail list, and it's like I've seen more and more restaurants, I think, with that. And maybe it's just kind of like one of those things that like you see it or like someone tells you about it and then like you start seeing it everywhere. But I think that kind of happened with Shift because like once I was just like thinking about like Libra and Co. or like these things, I would kind of see it at the store, like see it at Central Market or like see it online or something, and I would tell my mom about it. And like we would just have a little conversation with that. But yeah, it just kind of like, I think that like seeing it everywhere is just where it's really changed for me. And it's been nice to like compare our recipes to what I see on menus and be like, oh, cool, like that would be a nice thing for us to try. Or like I saw something on Pinterest the other day, and we've been like toying around with the idea of like doing like a strawberry drink, and it was like a strawberry jalapeno drink. So then I just like sent it to my supervisor. I was like, we should try this. So it's been really fun.
Okay, so I have two more questions for you. One being, I know I shared that Sweet Baby L's birthday party is strawberry themed. I also happen to be a fan of jalapeno flavored jalapenos, so I might need that recipe. Is that, something you'll share?
Yeah, I definitely
Oh,
can.
gonna have a mocktails at a 1-year-old birthday party. Yeah, sorry. So that wasn't in the script. That was just strong. Yeah. Anyways, I've got one more question for you, Catherine, as it relates to your experience of being a shift maker. Totally putting you on the spot here. If, as you're talking to your friends, your family, or somebody in class, and you're talking about being a shift maker, what do you tell them?
That's a great question. I think I always start with just so much positivity. Like it's not a job that I feel shameful about at all. And with previous jobs that I've had, there's been some like, oh, maybe I don't want to share that I work at a restaurant, or, you know, because of like the stigma that comes with that, or just like, okay, that's not something that I'm super proud of. But I'm always super proud to say that I'm a shift maker, and like I'm so excited to explain to anyone who's interested or just like willing to ask about it. And it's so fun because like when you do start to explain it, like, yeah, like I get to make mocktails or zero proof drinks, and people are like, oh, then what's zero proof? And then like it's kind of a confidence boost for, I feel like, the employees as well, because then we get to kind of show off our new knowledge and like the things that we've learned. And so for for me, I think I would tell my friends like it's like, I don't know, it's such a holistic job because we get like a community from it. We get an opportunity to build lifelong skills, like the communication aspect that I was talking about. And also just like multitasking, being prepared, like making sure you have all the ingredients and like that you don't forget something on the way to the event, otherwise you gotta walk back and go back and get it. So it's just a job that's brought me like not only a paycheck. And I think that was what was really like surprising to me about this and just awesome. And honestly, I recommend it to all my friends because like it would be so fun to work with them. And I think something that's also cool about shift is like when you work a shift with another shift maker, you just kind of know that like if you've never talked to them before, like that's your time to get to connect with them too. And that's where you get to learn like, okay, this person's a new shift maker. Like let me just like get to know them, have a conversation. And it's kind of like a little coffee chat with them. And so it's really fun. And yeah, I think just to kind of like sum all that up, it's just a lot of excitement to be able to talk about shift, a lot of pride, and it's just something that it's really fun to share.
I was watching Kate over there smiling. You just made her heart so happy right now. It makes my heart happy too, knowing that you're having such a positive experience.
Yeah, I mean it's so affirming, right? Like I said at the beginning, like it's so like I don't know, is anyone like I think this is a good idea. Is anybody else gonna? And I think it's just so far, surpassed all expectations. And anytime I get to hear a shift maker, reflect on their experience, I'm always just in awe and I mean so proud of the work because again, there would be no shift makers if our students weren't like Catherine and so invested and so committed and just such, all around amazing human being. Like that's the gift right there.
Yes, indeed. All right, question. Either of y'all can take it. Both of you can. Early on, actually, I think it was you, Kate, that mentioned, talking about the difference between zero proof, alcohol-free, non-alcoholic. Educate us, please. What's the difference?
I'll do my best. It's something that we're still learning to articulate. I think like as I mentioned, the non-alc market has just exploded some 500% or something in the last 4 years. Like it's really, there's new products, there are new entrants. You'll see as Catherine was saying, on more and more restaurant menus, we're starting to see this demand or I don't even know if it's a change in demand, but it's certainly a change in offering where there's just more interesting non-alcoholic kind of options. And so there is a difference between zero proof, which really means zero alcohol. Because there's, as I understand it, there's different ways to kind of, there's either a product that never contained alcohol or there's a way to de-alcoholize, which often leaves trace amounts of alcohol. So a lot of like non-alc beers or some of the spirits and things will have a small trace, so 0.05, kind of a trace of alcohol. We at Shift choose to be zero proof, I think, because for a lot of reasons. I think it just aligns with our mission. I think we feel really good and really confident about the drinks that we have. And I think there's still a lot of ambiguity in, not all of our students are 21. And so it really zero proof feel the most inclusive of whatever your age is, whatever you're interested. We also, I want to articulate that we typically serve about, depending on the event, of course, but about 3 drinks. And we use an alcohol alternative, a zero proof alcohol alternative in probably 2 of those drinks. We always make sure that there's one that doesn't emulate alcohol at all. There are folks, especially folks in recovery, who just don't even want anything that looks or feel like, an alcohol. They don't want to replicate that experience. And that's not what it's about. And so I think we're very intentional and very thoughtful about the ingredients that go in and thinking about zero proof, non-alc, and helping. I think we're learning, right? And we're kind of connecting directly with the vendors who we work with to kind of learn more about how is your product made, what feels important to them, and kind of just learning more about that entrepreneurial spirit that drove these folks to kind of get into this market as well. Because I think it's just a really interesting conversations that I think our students have also kind of learned a lot from.
I would say thank you. The way you articulated that and how you're intentional about on your menu of 3 drinks, at least one of those not emulating an alcohol-based drink. Because I'm one of those that wants to avoid those in my recovery. So thank you. Thank you. Talk about being inclusive and intentional. Yeah.
Well, we're learning, right? And I think so much of this is capturing feedback, and we have so many evaluation and assessment, intersections that we're trying to make sure that we're doing that. And so I think it's really, it's still evolving, and I think we're still figuring it out. But I think one of the strengths of shift makers is both, I think, in expanding people's boundaries of bizarre, meaning like, and if I can, I'll share a little anecdote about that. But it's going to make me lose my other thought if it hasn't already. I think I lost it. The anecdote I wanted to share in thinking about like expanding people's boundaries of bizarre, right? Like, and Catherine, I don't think you worked this event, but we were invited to be at a tailgate event that was for predominantly alumni and staff. So our shift makers were invited, and they were put directly next to a bar. A full alcohol bar. And this is Texas, Dave. I mean, I know it's probably going to thing, but like football is another level.
You take it just a little serious.
Yeah. And so as with our tailgate, right? And so this was, I think, an 11 o'clock game, which tells you like the tailgate party for staff and alumni was even before that. So there's a bar there. It's your typical tailgate fare, right? And so our shift makers, I think the expected attendance was like 250 people. And our shift makers were there directly next to the alcohol. And many people came up to them and said, like, no alcohol, like, this is the tailgate. Like, what do you mean no alcohol? Like, can I bring a flat or whatever, making joke. And so I think our shift makers were like, we only served 25 drinks out of 250 or whatever the expected was. But those were 25 of the most meaningful drinks that we served. Because I think the people that came up that they interacted with were so incredibly grateful for that experience, to have that option. And I think for those people who came up and were like, what do you mean there's no alcohol? My theory is they come back year after year. It's less of a surprise. It's less of a shock. It's less bizarre. And so now the landscape is starting to change, where the focus is on if you aren't drinking, where it's really just about Texas football in the best of ways. And so I think that's something that feels really important to name. And I think the other thought that I had that came back to me that in prevention work, and I think especially the substance misuse prevention, sometimes it's about taking away things, or it feels, I think, to folks like you're subtracting. And I think this is a really great way of being additive, of adding something to the experience that, again, people get to experience. I think a lot of those questions about, or conversations about harm reduction and safer use and challenging norms around alcohol and substance use and all of those still happen very naturally for shift makers, but that's not always the intent. We are a hired service, right? If we're at a retirement party, we're not there to promote shift. But at that same point, right, like those folks will come up and interact and just have an experience that expands their boundaries of bizarre, gives them a new opportunity to reflect and to think and engage. And I think those have been the points that are, again, like exciting and keep us going and hungry for more and thinking about what this can look like sustainably.
And I didn't wear this t-shirt knowing that you were going to share what you just shared. My shirt says "You Matter." But that's how I feel right now, because you talked about having the drink on your menu that doesn't emulate an alcohol-based drink, and then those 25 drinks you shared or you served the very first tailgate. Because for me in my recovery, like there's so many events that I just don't go to because they're so alcohol heavy, and it just doesn't feel like there's an option or like I belong, or and y'all are changing that. Yeah. So that you just make me feel like I matter, and to all those other individuals in recovery or those that just choose not to drink, you matter. That's what y'all are saying.
Well, thanks, Dave. That's again the most meaningful kind of compliment and feedback we could get, and that's really what we're hoping to do is change the culture and have everyone feel that they belong and that they matter. Certainly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So we could chat for hours, and never mind. We're coming up on an hour now. So rather than hold you on even longer, I just want to pause and open it up. If there's anything else we haven't talked about yet, or you really want to share with our audience, the floor is yours.
I mean, I don't know, we can leave this on the cutting room floor or whatever, but just a sincere thanks, Dave, for helping us continue this conversation and broaden it out. I mean, I feel like we went from, our very first semester when we launched, we did 4 events. I think we had 6 requests and we did 4 events. And this past year we did 60 with a lot more requests than that. And that's what we were able to meet. And I think it's just really exciting. I think we're really invested in figuring out, I think we know there is something here. There's something here that is resonating with people, that feels important. And we're trying to get to that point where we can put it all down. What works? What doesn't work? How do we make it sustainable? How do we really capture and measure the impact of this? And so I'm just excited to have the chance to share it and start to talk with you, and look forward to talk to folks that are starting to think similarly in their own necks of the woods, whether that's higher ed or elsewhere. I think there's a lot of potential in creating inclusive and equitable social experiences in this way. And it's been so fun to watch our students like Catherine and a few others, all of our other shift makers, just really come into their own, and they make it fun. They make it fun, and I'm just grateful for that too.
Yeah, beautiful. Catherine, any last words, parting words of wisdom?
I mean, Kate said it beautifully, but it's been so fun as a student. Like I didn't anticipate that I would have a job like this, or that I would get to do these things as a college student. And we've just had like really fun experiences as a team too. Like we just got a golf cart. We named the golf cart. Like it's been fun to like see it grow, even like while it's still going, I think. And like when Kate told us about the opportunity to do this podcast, and she was saying that she came on like before Shift was even a thing, like I can't believe like we're now getting to do like an update podcast. Like that is such a cool like concept to me. And like that's just awesome. So thank you again, like Kate said, for giving us the opportunity to share.
Y'all are awesome. Keep rocking, keep doing the amazing things that y'all are doing. And thank you for coming back and having this conversation with me. I've got all your social media links. So listeners, watchers, viewers, audience members, go get connected with the Shift Makers on social media. They got some good quality content out there as well. So you can stay up to date and get connected. And if you're local there in Texas, bring them on out. They will do off-campus events and spread the good news, the good work that is Shift. Thank you both very much. Have a great one.
Thanks, Dave.
That concludes this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and share this episode with a friend before you leave. And we look forward to seeing you on social media, because prevention is better together. Together, we are stronger.